According to a recent study on the state of fashion, nearly two-thirds of consumers are self-proclaimed belief-driven buyers. So what does that mean? Well, these shoppers will choose, switch, avoid, or boycott a brand based on its stand on societal issues. They look beyond stylish imagery to determine if a brand's substance really aligns with their own values. But it's not just consumers. Employees are also putting increasing pressure on fashion companies to go beyond performative action and become proactive advocates of diversity and inclusion. While we're already seeing some more companies put D&I on their high priority list, from leadership to culture, the study states that their initiatives will also come under increasing scrutiny in terms of sincerity and, honestly, results. Because the inclusivity movement is so much more than just good marketing. Stitch Fix has long recognized that there is significant work to do to promote a more equitable and diverse retail landscape. They have been longtime champions for size inclusivity, and as part of a bigger commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusivity, they most recently launched a grant and mentorship program called Elevate to support Black, Indigenous, and people of color or BIPOC entrepreneurs in fashion at an early stage of business growth. Today, we are joined by Stitch Fix brand ambassadors and vocal advocates for inclusivity and representation within the influencer space to discuss how they're changing mindsets with their activism and shifting culture in the process. So welcome. I am so thrilled to be here with all of you. Before we get started, I would love for each of you to give us your 30-second pitch, your name, your title, what you do, and how you're partnering with Stitch Fix. Katie, I will throw it to you first.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry about my glitchiness. I feel like a ghost. I am a huge fan of Stitch Fix. I just finished doing 4 different collections with them, which were size inclusive, and we had a big focus on diversity in the casting of the campaigns. And I don't know, I can't say enough good things about Stitch Fix. I'm a body acceptance advocate, and I'm also the founder of Mega Babe Beauty, which provides cute solutions for women for problems that we don't really talk about.
Love it. And Kellie, I will go to you next.
Hi, I'm Kellie Brown. I'm a content creator, former marketer, and I have been working with Stitch Fix for a few years. I'm a brand ambassador. I love the solution-based ideas around fashion and that making style accessible to anyone, even if they're a little bit afraid, and from the safety of your own home, not the scary dressing room. I too can't say enough good things in terms of their inclusivity, diversity, and proactive approach to making sure that people feel included.
Awesome. And Kristine?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristine. I am a fashion and lifestyle influencer of the blog trendycurvy.com. I also founded a plus-size clothing line, Kim by Kristine. I've been a longtime ambassador of Stitch Fix. Also, cannot say enough good things. I think everybody who's been involved with Stitch Fix can have the same testament. I was an ambassador with them for their launch of plus size, so I've kind of seen it all evolve from the very beginning and have been rocking with them ever since.
Amazing. So since this is a conversation about inclusivity in the influencer space, I'd love to hear from each of you a little bit. In your opinion, why does representation matter? Kellie, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think representation matters in any industry, especially when it comes to fashion, because people have to wear clothes, right? It's mandated by law that you don't step outside of your home the way that you step into the shower. And so I think fashion is the way that most of us express ourselves. It's how we introduce ourselves without saying anything. If you are passionate about fashion or you're just getting dressed out of necessity, it doesn't mean that you don't care what you look like. And so since fashion has traditionally been exclusive, whether it's from a luxury standpoint, so whether it's economically, whether it's by size, what's available to people, inclusivity in fashion and representation in fashion matters because we are all needing to get dressed. We're all needing to participate in this, whether it's, enthusiastically or not. And so it just makes good business sense for brands to serve all of the customers that are available to them, especially in, a strained economy.
Absolutely. And Katie, actually, you started posting photos of yourself with the hashtag hashtag make my size to encourage brands to carry more inclusive sizing. Was there a strategy behind the hashtag when you first created it, or was it born purely out of your own frustration? And why do you think it resonated and caught on so quickly?
I would say that the Make My Size hashtag was born out of pure frustration after shopping. I had gone up like 2 sizes, and I thought it was hard to shop at a 14. I had no idea what was ahead of me. And it was born out of pure frustration of being like, wow, I really have a limited option here, and these brands don't even know that they have so many more customers that they could be serving. And I think that that comes down to the fact that there is no representation in the office, or there's no representation in that room where people are making decisions. They're like, oh, we're offering a 12. That's fine. Like, that feels like it's fitting a bunch of different women. So I think that it goes back to representation. And I think the reason that the Make My Size hashtag resonated with people is that I think many of us have had that frustrating feeling of like going and trying on the biggest size at a brand and realizing that like you can't even get it above your knees. And how does that make you feel? And the best thing that I think has come from that, other than designers paying attention and offering more sizes, is that women in the fitting room have flipped the script a bit, and they're like, you know what? It's not me. It's the clothes. Like, that's their fault. And that's everything. So rather than crying and going home and being like, I can't believe I can't wear this, it's more about like, I'm the average size in this country. Why aren't you making clothes for me?
That's right. Being the average size in the country, it just seems like a bad business decision. But tell us also about hashtag supersize the look and the impact it has had on the wider fashion community.
Supersize the look has been a really fun thing that I do, where I take a celebrity look and I recreate it on my body. And I think that that is, and this is, Kelly, this is something you do so well. You like pulling in trends that you think that you can't pull off because you're not a size 2. I think people really react to the fact that they're like, wait, I can wear over the knee boots because you're wearing over the knee boots. So I think I could probably wear them. And I think that that's just, it's about waking up that side of you that feels inspired by celebrity style, but has always talked yourself out of it because you don't think that you're the right size to wear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kristine, you work with so many incredible brands as a model and an influencer. What are the criteria you look for before you sign on with a brand, or how do you ensure the company is committed to lasting change and not just performative action?
It's funny because when I first came into the influencer space, I didn't really realize how I could affect change in them. I really didn't know that I was going to be working with brands at all, actually, because that was non-existent when I started. But as I evolved and grew, so did the industry. And when I was first looking to work with brands, it was all about size. Are they size inclusive? Do they create quality clothing? Making sure they don't do anything shady, like, rip other designers off. And I was very unafraid to say my piece when it came to those matters. However, when the conversation shifted to racial inclusivity, I was admittedly a little bit more timid, because when I would show up to a brand event or a trip and I was the only woman of color, I was the only Black woman there, I was a little bit more cautious in how I approached those situations, unlike how I was so unapologetic when it came to size. And that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. We don't have enough time to cover that. But I think now, as I've evolved as a person, as a creator, I've been much more aware and conscious of my power and how I can really start conversations, as opposed to just showing up and being a part of a conversation and just being grateful to be there. I think that's kind of what stemmed kind of the hesitation before, is just being grateful to be there and not wanting to ruffle any feathers. And I think now I'm realizing that I do have power to shift those conversations into a more inclusive and diverse space. And me being there is an example of being more inclusive and diverse.
Absolutely. So Kelly, in an op-ed for Teen Vogue, you wrote about your response to your dad's career advice. Find something you love to do and figure out how to make money doing it. Great advice. This made sense until you realized you didn't see yourself in the jobs you love, style, photography, writing. Can you talk us through the moment and how you moved past that to get the career that you have now, where you felt like there was no space for you?
Yeah, I mean, my dad is full of these amazing nuggets that just are like, they define your life. And you're like, oh, it's that simple. I was sitting at my kitchen table in like the 5th grade or something. I was like, how do you like get a job? Like, how are you assigned? Like, how does this work? You know, like, did you choose this? And he's like, I don't know, just pick something. What do you like doing? Figure out how to make money doing it. He said it so casually. And so I was always writing. My parents were submitting my stories to our community paper when I was in the 1st grade. Like, we had a dark room in my basement. I knew that I was going to be a journalist or Oprah or something, right? And I wanted to start a newspaper and a radio show and all these things. And when I realized that I was interested in fashion pretty early on, I started to notice that everyone was different to me. And what sparked that is because my little sister is thin. She's 4 years younger and she's never been bigger. And people would point it out like, well, why are you fat and she's skinny? And I'm like, I don't know, you know? And so that was kind of one idea that like something is different about me. And then as I was starting to identify with creative fields, I never saw anyone who looked like me. And I remember watching like, I don't know, whatever fashion file type thing when I was maybe 13 or so, and I saw Andre Leon Talley, and I quickly could discern that he was important and that everyone was following him around. He was at a show and being interviewed, and I was like, what? Who is this big black man? Like, what is happening? And it was this defining moment. And then I was watching coverage of like 7th on 6 and Soffer and Malice. And I was like, she is the boss. She looks like the women in my family. You know, she's curvy. Like, she just looked more familiar to me than the women on the runway. And I found it to be really encouraging. And so I had this attitude of why not me? And you know, I think definitely was cultivated by my family as I was like, you know, trying out for things and expressing interest, being deeply encouraged, like, you got a shot, like, why not, you know, go for it. And so that has always been my approach. And then when you sort of arrive into New York and you're plopped into fashion, I was in PR at the time. I was always the big girl in the room. There was no one else. I was always the black girl in the room. There was no one else. And it really made me want to create space. It made me not want to be the only one. I wasn't just happy that, great, they like me. It was more like, I can't possibly be the only talented Black female fat person in this city. Like, where's everyone else? And so, you know, it just encouraged me to like look for people, to look for community, and to make sure that I was using my voice in ways that would further highlight other people and welcome them into the space via like the And I Get Dressed page, which is not like it's me, Kellie, where it's like, that's my stuff, but there's all these other people who are amazing and diverse and not categorized by their size or their race or whatever. And then Fat at Fashion Week as well. So
yeah, so tell us a little bit. You also had a viral hashtag Fat at Fashion Week, so and it took off. So can you tell us a little bit about the idea behind that and why you think it was so popular?
So it wasn't even an idea. It was just, I was at an event, and I think probably much like what Katie said, you have a moment where you have this like frustrated feeling and you say something and people resonate with it. And so it was really at the height of the conversations around why no plus size, curvy, fat, thick, you know, thick, whatever women were being captured at Fashion Week by street style photographers. Additionally, no Black women. And so I was at an event and it was filled with, you know, the fashion directors from Condé Nast and, you know, huge people in marketing and models and supermodels and all these really important industry heavy hitters. And it was a plus size event. And it just, when I came out and took the picture for just capturing my outfit, I thought, they said that no one is big at, like, what is, like, I'm in a room of 100 people who are amazing and incredible. And so that's kind of how it was born, and it just resonated with people. And it turned from that into really just wanting to go beyond just like, hey, here are all of our cute outfits. It's more like, we exist in this industry. So if you're a little fashion kid who's looking up into this industry and thinking that you don't belong, like we are all your visible representation of yourself, that you belong here. We're kicking down doors for you to walk through, and we're doing the work so that we can, so that you can join us.
Yeah, absolutely. And now more than ever, brands are leveraging influencers. How should brands be thinking about inclusivity from the very start of their campaign strategies? Katie, I'll let you take this one.
If I were a brand and I were casting a campaign, which I have done, I look at the people who are organically into my product, and I make sure that the people that I'm paying to promote my product are as diverse as my customers. And so that means that I'm not just like, shoot, we have to have an Asian girl in here. Like, it's more about finding the people who have authentic voices and making sure that you have a diverse range of those people. That's how I just cast our first Mega Babe influencer campaign, was just to, and actually we had over 50% of the people that we paid were Black women, because that is, that's our customer, right? So you need to make sure that you're giving that community someone to look to.
Absolutely. And as advocates and activists, you've all been on the front line of the inclusivity movement. So, Kristine, I'll throw this one to you. How can the influencer marketing ecosystem be more representative of all backgrounds, gender, race, age, sexual orientation, body type, audience size, and all these different perspectives from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, I think the influencer space already is incredibly diverse, and I think that's why there's been such a rise in popularity in influencers and why they've kind of acquired the audiences that they have, because they're so relatable. We're not trying to sell any standard of beauty. We're not trying to redefine beauty. We just are ourselves, and we have different points of view. We have different backgrounds. We grew up in different places. And so I think that the influencer space is already incredibly diverse. It's just up to the brands to integrate that into their marketing campaigns and their strategies. And I think that should happen from the very beginning. Like, to answer your question from before, where should they start? They should just start. They should just do. They're everywhere. They're prevalent. They have the audiences. They definitely have value that they can bring to your brands. And I think that just making a conscious decision to make sure that they are prevalent in every single touch point of your campaign strategy is monumental, because you have a social responsibility as a brand to represent your consumers. And so you need to be able to speak to the people who are buying your product in every single facet of society.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kellie, do you have anything to add to that?
I think it's important to realize that it's not about, when you have a campaign, you're filling spots, right? So we have budget for 10 people, and what do they look like? And to both Katie and Kristine's point, it's not about just filling slots. I think it's also important for brands to recognize that these people are here, like everyone exists in every form, right? And just leaning to what is sort of the brand ethos. I don't know, there's something, I feel like the initial start of it kind of even goes before, who's in the room. It's almost like what we need to redefine what is the word has left my mind. Hold on. What's aspirational? There it is. Wow. Because that's where brands start. They're trying to seek, this aspirational person. And if you only assume that thinness, whiteness, able-bodiedness are aspirational, then when you go to fill your bucket list for your campaign wishes, you're only looking to those people because your mind is already made up on who's a fit, versus the reality of who your customer is, and the reality that there are people from every walk of life with real, true, valuable influence that can impact your brand's bottom line. So I think it's a little bit of, it's all those things, but we have to redefine what we call aspirational.
And I totally agree. And I think that's something that we have been seeing as a change. I mean, I'm 35, but growing up, all that was on the cover of magazines was thin white women. And it just becomes the cultural consciousness of like, that's what I need to be wanted, to be successful, to be whatever. So being able to see women, and obviously the influencer space really democratized that in a lot of ways, see women that look like you and struggle with the same things you do provides a whole new lens into what marketing and advertising could be. So Katie, you launched a size inclusive line with Stitch Fix and it was a massive hit. You've obviously worked with other brands before, but why was Stitch Fix the best partner for this collection? And what was your mission going into this collaboration and what you learned about the size inclusive market?
I wanted to make pieces with Stitch Fix that were really hard to find on my own. So I made things like riding pants and I made overalls. God, I loved my overalls. A tennis skirts, like things that really I struggle to find in my size. So that was one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to make the hard to find products. I think the thing about Stitch Fix that's different than other brands is that they have a focus on the fit. They have an entire team of people that really understand the way that women's bodies are shaped, the way that like your body spreads out in different ways. And it's interesting because they don't grade the clothes the way that most companies do, where they're just kind of grading up and bigger. They understand the way that like a woman's arm might be shaped, or like that you need to make room for boobs. Like these are just some of the differences, that the reason why Stitch Fix clothing fits so well. And one of the reasons why, even if I don't like the style in like something that I got in my fix, everything always fits. And that is something that I think I cannot take for granted, and I cannot emphasize enough. There is nothing like opening up a box of clothing and having everything fit, even if you don't like it. That's a luxury that I've never had. And it really is a testament to Stitch Fix and the way that they use technology and merge it with fashion to like get that kind of result.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that's so true. That's such a good feeling. Kristine, you create impactful campaigns that transcend the traditional standards of beauty. So how are you redefining beauty? What is the short and long-term impact you've seen as a result of increased representation in the influencer space?
Yeah, so the idea of redefining beauty is kind of an interesting one because I think because of the way I grew up, I never felt like I wasn't beautiful. So I never really felt like I had to redefine what beauty was, even though I saw predominantly white thin women that were represented in fashion and media, so on and so forth. So I've always had thick legs. And so I used to play volleyball and I used to be in biker shorts all the time and look very different than my teammates, so to say. So my mom, who I don't even think she consciously did this, but she would always say, "You have such big, pretty legs," when I was growing up. And so that really shaped my confidence and who I was. And I knew I was different, but it didn't matter. I had big, pretty legs. So it didn't matter that I was different than everybody else. And so I think that that's definitely funneled into the type of woman that I am today, and why people can look at my page and say, I just feel your confidence, even though I've never met you, because I just feel like there's nothing for me to not be confident about. And so I feel like redefining beauty is just showing up, because there are just so many different facets of what beauty should be. And although we haven't seen it represented, social media has made it such a much more level playing field for any type of definition of beauty to show up in a space and create your own atmosphere and create your own definition. And so it is difficult getting that to translate to brands. And that's always going to be a challenge. But I think now with the rise in influencers and the way that social media you can have your own brand. You don't have to rely on a commercial brand to have your own definition of beauty. And I think that's a beautiful thing about influencers.
Absolutely. And all of you are projecting confidence and realness on your feeds to your audience all the time. But along with size inclusivity, how would you like to see the fashion industry innovate and better champion diversity? Kellie, I'll throw that one to you.
I think an obvious thing is that for the first time, we're seeing beauty campaigns with people who have acne. We're seeing differently abled bodies in fashion campaigns. We're seeing Black and POC people regularly used in campaigns. And so, what I would love to see is for that to not be even of note because it's regular. I would love it not to need to be called out that you, as a brand, have included 10 Black and POC people, and that it is just regular. It should be normal that a size 2, 4, 16, and 24 person are in a campaign promoting jeans that the company is selling to all those humans. So I think we have a long way to go for that. But I think that it's really up to us in a way, because I feel like the more that people are holding brands accountable, the better they do. Brands will do the bare minimum, most of them, and they'll do what they are held to do. And I think, whether it's influencers, their customers, social media does create a platform for people to express they're pleased with you or displeased with you. And I think it's also really critical and important for people with privilege and in positions of power to also make sure that they're advocating for people. We talk about, representation being seeing people who look like us, but we also have to be excited about seeing people who don't look like us and who are different to us, and realize that, this is great, because I don't want to see one narrow version of what beauty is, even if I fit into that version of what people are saying is beautiful. We have to redefine and reprogram our minds to just automatically notice when, what are our current blind spots, which are like not noticing if the entire campaign is all one kind of person, one size person, and really kind of change our own perceptions of like that being okay. In addition to brands doing the work, I think the changes that we've seen and the shift that we've seen is because of us. It's because we have been the ones like, you have to do better, and them following suit in many ways.
Yeah, totally agree. And, this is an interesting shift in this conversation, but reports estimate that the influencer marketing industry could be worth up to $15 billion by 2022. So it's important now more than ever to end the disparity in influencer pay. In a recent interview with the Zoe Report, you revealed that you've always felt fairly compensated by Stitch Fix. Can you tell us more about what Stitch Fix is doing right and how other companies can follow their lead and do better in closing the pay gap?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, that was just a random statement that flew out of my mouth because it was true, and wasn't prompted. It was just, thinking about my interaction with many brands. I feel very blessed in that I have a lot of opportunities. However, everyone approaches you differently, and especially with the marketing and PR background that I have, and having cast so many campaigns, I know that no budget is not a thing. That's not real. It's no budget for you, which means, then pick someone else, and so I think why I said that is because, what they're doing right is reaching out to people that they think are interesting and have value, and that they can see their brand doing something well with, doing it once and saying, that was great, it was a great response, let's do that again in this way. And I don't know, it's more like what people do wrong, I guess. So like what others are doing wrong is like, maybe engaging an influencer in a small way and then having an expectation that the next 15 are free. They don't do that. Working with people in longer term ways, because you can't always expect to see huge impact after one IG post when perhaps IG was broken that day, which we all know that happens all the time. You're like, oh, my stories have 4 views and the next one has 4. What is happening? So, I think it's really about looking for people who are diverse and interesting and have a point of view, who are going to uplift your brand and introduce their audience to your brand in a really authentic and honest and cool, interesting way. And then also making sure that you're compensating people fairly. You're not asking for the world, and then when they give you their fees for the world, you say, just kidding, we have $10. Can we still get all this stuff? So I mean, that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, totally. And I agree. I think the longer term partnerships, the ambassadorships, the collaborations, those are what perform well because it feels so authentic to the person. It's not a one and done situation.
And those, really quick, I just want to say, because I feel like this is important, the longer term partnerships, the collaborations, the real equity in a brand and in an influencer, that is where I feel like diversity needs a much stronger play. I feel like those type of year-long partnerships or opportunities for real money outside of just one-offs, it's still a little bit sparse when it comes to Black and POC creators. And I think that needs to go a lot further, just across the industry as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kristine, this year's increase in social activism has shined a spotlight on the glaring lack of diversity in the influencer space. And you've been outspoken about this on Instagram, both your own account and on Stitch Fixes. What has been your experience with brands since the resurgence of the BLM movement on social media this year? And what advice do you have for the business owners who want to work with Black creators?
It's been a very interesting place to be a Black person during this time of awakening, so to say, for these brands, because on one hand, it's been extremely positive. I'm super grateful for the conversations that have been had, the resources that have been given to Black creators, the donations that have been made to social justice causes. All of that has been extremely positive. But on the other side, you just have this voice in the back of your head that just says, okay, we've been proclaiming that Black Lives Matter. We've been saying that Black people are disproportionately treated in society. We've been saying that systemic racism is very prevalent, and it took global pressure for you to realize that our experiences were true and were relevant. And so it's almost like this, sorry I'm late, but I didn't want to show up type of thing. However, it's not really helpful to dwell in that space. And it does diminish the efforts that have been happening now, and it's not progressive. So I think that I think as a collective, we have been very pleased with the progress that has been made since these conversations have started, and since it has been so much of a responsibility and really a demand. It used to be kind of an ask, a request. Now it's a demand, and there are not only Black people that are demanding this, like I said, it's a global issue, and brands are being checked for not having inclusivity and for not having diversity. And so I think having that coupled with influencers that were already kind of on the front lines and behind the scenes, having those conversations really will bring about true change. But it's super important to make sure that this is not a moment, and that this is a continuous conversation, and that brands are continuing to be held accountable for these plans of actions and for these mission statements that were so prevalent on social media. We need to make sure that those things are still being seen well past when the moment has passed.
Yeah, absolutely. And while there's been a lot of progress, a lot of it has been consumer facing. So like you said, the promises we've seen made on social media, the forward facing messaging, but we need to see representation happen behind the scenes as well. So how can we keep moving the needle forward and make inclusion the norm behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera? Katie, do you want to take that one?
I think it's time to look around at your team and see like who you're working with, whose point of view you're getting every day. Are you getting a diverse point of view? Like, how can you even claim to be a company for all people if you only have one type of person in your office, right? And I feel like that's the thing. I mean, I can only bring this to the plus size example, and I think it's really interesting when you have a room full of like thin women and men in a room making decisions about what you as a plus size woman will like. So I think that if you translate that to the racial issue, it makes sense that you would be like, okay, why do we think that we can speak to this group of people when we have no one in here representing them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to end on this question before we get into rapid fire, but what are your hopes for the future of fashion? Kellie, I'll go to you first.
My hope for the future of fashion is honestly that more brands focus on size inclusivity, stop ignoring a gajillion dollars from a gajillion people who would like to wear their stuff. I mean, it's absolutely silly. You know, deodorant companies are not saying that they prefer armpits of this size to the other. It's absolutely idiotic. And so I hope that that's a thing. And then I also hope that we continue to not tokenize marginalized people and throw them in campaigns when it's trendy, throw us in campaigns when it's trendy, and not to, center the entire brand ethos around this mysterious 25-year-old thin blonde woman.
Period. The end.
Period. The
Kristine.
end.
Kristine.
I mean, how do you come after that? But speaking to Kellie's point, I think the future of fashion, the hope is to not be pleasantly surprised by certain things, to not be pleasantly surprised when you go on a brand's homepage and there's a Black woman that's in the forefront, to not be surprised when you're walking down the street, well, driving, I live in LA, I don't know who I'm kidding, driving down the street and you see a billboard and there's a plus size woman that's for a major brand, to not have those pleasant surprises. And although they are pleasant now, speaking to Kellie's point again, they should be more of the norm. We should say to ourselves, oh, okay, yeah, that person looks great in that because those clothes were made for that person, because that brand was made for all diverse types of people. So I think the hope and the future of fashion is to make things more normal, to make it so that we don't stop in our tracks when we see diversity.
I will say that I went into 2 stores last weekend. One, I went in and they said, oh yeah, we do carry plus in the store. And I almost fell over. I was like, what? Wow, where is it? That's exciting. And then I went to the second store and they were like, you can only buy online. And I said, of course. Why would you carry plus in the store? So my point is that I agree with both Kristine and Kellie. I don't want this to be the norm. I don't want to be pleasantly surprised that you've decided to carry my size in a store. I don't want to be. I don't want it to be labeled a curvy fashion story. Like once we start to drop some of those labels and just have it just be expected that you belong there, that is what I would like the future of fashion to be too.
Absolutely. So let's do some rapid fire. Okay, the 3 traits that got me to where I am today, Kellie.
3 traits that got me to where I am today. I would say I'm fearless. I'm passionate, and I'm willing to laugh at myself.
That's a really important trait for sure. Katie, when I make time for self-care, I
sit on the couch and I watch TV with my husband and my dog, and sometimes I put a face mask on.
Sounds like a dream Friday night to me.
Yeah.
And Kristine, final question. Inclusivity is?
It's everything. It's everything to the point where it shouldn't even be a word. It should just be.
It should just be normalized. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Stitch Fix, for this amazing conversation. And thank you so much, Kristine, Katie, and Kellie. You guys are such an inspiration. Thank you for being here. Bye, guys.
Bye.